Hi, Intro to Entrepreneurship class. Today we are going to talk about market research, which is in the second unit of our class. We've covered Think Like an Entrepreneur, and now we're on to Plan Your Business, talking about market research, which is the only part of the Plan Your Business unit that will be on your first exam. The plan for this video is to define market research, talk about the startup loop of despair, discuss the different types of market research and different categories that they fall into, as well as what to ask when you're actually talking to customers and market segmentation, or dividing up your market into specific targets that you're going to focus on for your business. All right, so first let's define what market research is so that we're all on the same page. Market research is exactly what it sounds like. It's researching your market. But what does that mean? So by market, we're actually talking about the marketplace where you sell your goods and services. So when you're thinking about the marketplace where you sell your goods and services, the questions that you're asking are, who will buy what you're selling? So that's talking about your customers. Now, different types of businesses have different types of customers. So if you're a business to consumer, you sell to the end consumer, then that's who your market is talking about when we're talking about different customers. You might be a business to business or a B2B company. So then your customers are actually other businesses instead of individual consumers. Or you could also be a business to government organization that primarily sells to government organizations. And there are some businesses that are a combination of all of these. So that's what you want to think about. You need to know who you're selling to, your consumers, whether it's the end consumers, it's other businesses, or it's the government, who you're competing against, so looking at your competitors, and then also what is this industry like that you're going to be selling your goods and services in. So all of that summarizes into the specific definition of what market research is, which is the collection and analysis of data regarding your customers or your target market, your competitors, and your industry. All right, so now let's talk about the startup loop of despair, which is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think it can really save entrepreneurs a lot of time, energy, and money if they're familiar with the startup loop of despair before they actually go out and start their business. So the startup loop of despair is this theory kind of coined by Diana Kander, and this is kind of model of what the startup loop of despair actually looks like. So a typical entrepreneur, when he or she comes up with their idea, they then get so excited about their idea that they build the most comprehensive version of their business that they can. So build out their product, plan out their services, set up their business entity, and then they really start to put a lot of time and effort into branding their business. So coming up with a cool logo design and phrases for marketing, and spending a lot of time in that area. And then after that, after having the original idea, building their business, and then branding it, they finally go and try to sell it to customers. And more often than not, they strike out big time. And so they get feedback from the customers about what's wrong, what they need to fix. So they brainstorm about possibilities, what can I change, and then go back all the way, which I think the video is going the opposite way of what you all see. But you get the idea of the loop. They take what they learn from their customers, go back to the original idea, and start all over. So a lot of times they have to change the design of their product or what they're doing with their services, how their business really works, how they built it. Then they modify the branding, and then they go talk to customers again. And that's the idea of this loop that they get stuck in that really eats up a lot of time and energy. So starting up the right way, how you avoid this is you move one of those things. You move the customers to the second thing that you do after you come up with your idea, which this leads to the importance of market research, which is collecting information from your customers, about your customers, knowing your competitors in your industry as well, but really focusing on talking to your customers, getting that concrete information to ensure that there is a market for your product. So starting up the right way, after you come up with your idea, talk to customers first before you spend a lot of time and money and energy building and branding your business. And this ties right back into some of our previous discussions about failure. Recall that 42% of small businesses fail because there's no market for their product or service. You want to invest in the right idea. You don't want to build and brand something that hasn't been thoroughly vetted through market research. All right, so this ties back to some statistics we've already talked about in regards to why small businesses fail. Now, this also ties into the whole concept of marketing. So some of you might have taken marketing classes or have that expertise, and marketing really is different than selling. Marketing should be based on market research, and in fact, your market research should really drive all business decisions. So that's why right after the idea is talking to customers, performing that market research, and then you make better informed decisions about everything else and about how to set up your business, how to brand it, you know better how to sell it, you know more about the financials, you have more accurate pictures of everything surrounding your business once you perform the market research. Okay, so now let's talk about different types of market research and categories as well. Okay, so different types of market research, basically two kind of big buckets that you can put market research in. You have your primary market research or your secondary market research, and it's really simple. The primary meaning you went to the primary source yourself and you collected that information directly from that source. So that's kind of new information you're gathering yourself, in addition to secondary information, which is where you're using information that's already been collected by somebody else or other organizations. It already exists out there in resources available to you. So both types of these research are required for your executive summary business plans. The primary research that you have to collect, we'll talk about strategies for that and different options you have. And the secondary research, I actually recommend performing first, which is what you're going to be doing with Kendra Spar, a business librarian. She has excellent secondary research databases, information you can gather about your industry, your competitors, behaviors of consumers, how that relates to your business, and then you can use that to really guide your primary research that you're going to perform. All right, so some examples of primary research methods include these: personal interviews, or one-on-one interviews with individual potential customers, surveys. So a lot of times, of course, this includes, mailed surveys or phone, but what's more relevant to a lot of students is surveys that you might do on social media or stopping people and asking them to take a quick survey. Focus groups, where you get, a group of maybe 7 to 10 potential consumers and have a guided group discussion, so it's more people than just a personal one-on-one interview. Observations, where you actually go out and watch your consumers in action and how they behave, and you can observe them behaving when they're shopping at certain locations or in things that they're doing, especially in regard to a problem you might be solving for them. And then tracking, so tracking what's going on at your competitors, tracking different competitors' prices, how that works. So that's information that you collect yourself as well. Now, secondary research methods, of course, online searches, which you all probably do regularly all the time, but Kendra Spar has some excellent tips and hints when you're searching online to make sure you get legitimate sources. Public and proprietary database searches, which again, K-State Libraries has awesome proprietary database information that you all get access to as K-State students. Data published by industry associations, chambers of commerce, and other public agencies. Government entities often have a lot of research they conduct and put out in the public, and they're great resources for businesses. And then finally, competitor websites often have a lot of information that's useful to you when you're researching your customers, your industry, and of course your competitors. All right, so categories of collecting market research include qualitative measures, which qualitative, when you think of that, you want to think of words. All right, so these are your interviews and your focus groups. You can turn some qualitative information into quantitative, which is the other category of collecting market research. But this is using words, so that would be if you notice any consistencies or themes that you can then turn into quantitative research, you can do that. But in general, qualitative means that it's in words, it's not necessarily analyzed as far as statistics and mathematical analysis. These are usually your smaller sample sizes, which, those personal interviews and focus groups, those are the smaller sample sizes. Now, if you choose quantitative measures using numbers, then that's your mathematical analysis, and you want to look at what is statistically significant. So what's important out of this information I've collected? These are your larger sample sizes. And one of the key ways students do this quantitative research is using surveys. So it's important to know that when you are conducting surveys, they're most effective if you can conduct them in person and near the site of the possible enterprise, so where people would potentially have an interest in your business. Telephone and in-person interviews have the highest response rate. Email and social media, the response rate is really fractional. And then mailings, which wouldn't really apply to most what students would do, they are kind of somewhere in the middle as far as the response rate for people actually saying yes to taking your survey. Okay, so let's look at what to ask. Now, this is key. You all have in the PowerPoints that you're filling in for this content, you all have a link to Customer Discovery Hacks with Justin Wilcox video. Now, when you think about talking to consumers, and you're thinking about what you're going to do, a lot of students just intuitively think, okay, I'm going to pitch my business idea to them and ask them if they would buy this. But that is not what you want to do, okay? That's pitching your idea, which is different than performing market research, all right? So you are not on Shark Tank. That's not how you should act. That's not the types of questions or information that you should provide when you're conducting market research. So this is not Shark Tank. Market research is not the pitching, not Shark Tank. Instead, what you want to do, and watch this video with Justin Wilcox because it outlines this very clearly, but you want to always ask past and present questions and not ask future questions about would you buy this or will you do this in the future, because it's much better to observe consumers actually experiencing something in their normal habitat or asking them past and present questions, because otherwise people are just guessing. They don't really know. They can say what they think you want them to hear. They might think they do something, but they don't really know. So past and present questions to really show you're solving a problem that exists for people. That's what you're trying to demonstrate with this market research. So things like, tell me about the last time and then you experienced this problem. What was the hardest part? Why was it hard? How do you solve it now? And why is that not awesome? So one of the best questions, and that's something that you can fix for them, and you can use this information that you get. All right, so choosing a market segment, you want to think about market segmentation when you're developing questions for your customers, because then you'll be able to better analyze the data afterwards. All right, so target market segments, these are groups defined by common factors, geography, demographics, psychographics, and behaviors. And you put people in these groups because they're thought to have a similar type of response to a particular product or service. You have limited resources when you're starting out a business, so you want to be able to focus those. Later on, companies might have multiple products or services or levels, but at least initially you want to target a specific target market. All right, so this just kind of goes further into how you can segment your market by location, by demographics like age, gender, income, education, psychological differences, which are opinions or lifestyles, or behaviors, so actually how they purchase things. And this is an example, so it's in your PowerPoints of how I did this in each of these segmentations, so you can kind of see what I'm looking for the executive summary and learn more about this. And I use actual databases that Kendra is going to discuss with you as well. So American Fact Finder and Mintel are two of the databases Kendra goes over. All right, so some additional quick tips. Avoid technical jargon. Don't ask double barrel questions, 2 questions in one. That confuses people. Keep them short and specific. Remember that you need to analyze the data afterwards. Test your questions on a few people before administering anything, and check Mintel, one of the databases from Kyndra, for example questions. All right, that sums it up for market research.